Eric Hoffer famously observed that every great cause becomes a movement, that becomes a business, that becomes a racket. And I think that sums up precisely the matter before us today. SPLC is a private organization. They have a right to speak and influence the public policy discussion. No one questions that. What they do to malign innocent groups like Turning Point USA and Family Research Council and others is despicable and hateful, but that's freedom of speech. But freedom of speech does not include the right to defraud donors. It does not include the right to commit bank fraud. Those are the allegations in the grand jury indictment. We've got a legal system that I trust will sort those charges out. And it also doesn't include the right to slander, and we have good laws and civil courts to hold them accountable for defamation. So that leaves two legislative concerns. First is this: the civil rights movement, of which SPLC was once a part, had made great progress in uniting our country and marginalizing racist ideology and dramatically reducing racial strife between the 1950s and the 1990s. But over the past several decades, that progress seems to have reversed. In recent years, we've watched our country torn apart by growing racial strife. And the allegation at the heart of this matter is that the SPLC was covertly fanning these flames for their own financial gain. A significant flashpoint, of course, was the Charlottesville riots, which had fatal results. And I do need to call out the ranking member for deliberately perpetuating the Democrats' dishonest claim that Donald Trump praised the Nazis at Charlottesville when he said there were, quote, very fine people on both sides. What the ranking member knows but chose to leave out is that Trump then said, I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists because they should be condemned totally, unquote. Ranking member knows this, and the fact that he perpetuated that today speaks for itself. Now we have the revelation that the SPLC paid the chief organizer of this Unite the Right riot $270,000 while he was recruiting agitators and posting inflammatory rhetoric. And to learn that this was part of more than $3 million in such payments to such extremist groups begs the question of whether the SPLC was financing the very extremist groups it was assuring donors was fighting with their contributions. The terrible attack on the mosque in San Diego on Monday was inspired by neo-Nazi propaganda. Was this surreptitiously financed by the SPLC or similar NGOs or perhaps even foreign governments? That's a legitimate concern and one that we need to fully explore. The second legislative concern is that during the Biden administration, the Attorney General and the FBI Director told this committee that white supremacist groups were the greatest single threat that our country faced. The SPLC was one of the primary sources of this testimony. Was this an attempt to mislead Congress? And were the officials responsible for this testimony victims of misinformation by the SPLC, or were they active participants in this deception? I think we need to get to the bottom of that as well. Now, Dr. Swain, you detailed the smear campaign against you that obviously caused you reputational damage and financial loss. And Mr. Perkins, your organization suffered both financial loss and actual violence. Why haven't you sued the SPLC?
Partly because information was not available, as is now coming forth. We did talk to some attorneys initially about the violence that was perpetrated, but because of really there were other suits that were brought against the SPLC, but their image was so strong until now that it was very difficult. We had suits that were brought in court that did not succeed. I think it's a different day now, and I think you may see some civil actions.
I would certainly hope so. Mr. O'Neill, is it possible the SPLC is not the only source of funds going to these extremist groups? Is it possible they're financed by other NGOs or even foreign governments? What reforms would you recommend?
It is possible, but I have no knowledge of that. What I know are the allegations claimed in the indictment, but I would highly encourage Congress to consider adding to any rider of financial disbursements that no taxpayer funds be directed to an organization that systematically slanders and defames mainstream conservatives and Christians, or frankly, those on the other side of the aisle, in the way that the SPLC does.
Thank you.